Air Force is sending C-17s on deportation flights.
Yeah.
It has begun.
Yeah. Did you see the Marines getting dropped in the Osprey on the border?
I saw the Ospreys, but I didn't see them. Did they parachute or they just no?
They
They
landed.
just landed and yeah.
Yeah.
So this article is 5,400 saying that C-17s and C-130s are going to deport 5,400 people currently detained by CBP. The announcement was done on 22nd January. So, man, he ain't messing around. Get after it.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? What do you think? I've got some opinions,
I
but
mean, if you're legal, you're legal, you know. If
yeah,
you're not, and I know there's a lot of controversy over that app that people were using to like process faster, but it still wasn't legal. Like
yeah,
they weren't legally here yet. They just started a process through
yeah,
this app. So, I mean, they're trying.
yeah,
I mean, I don't know if this is really it's the thought that counts scenario because anyone could use the app
yeah,
and like start the process and just be in our country and just disappear. I
yeah,
mean, it's just obviously I travel a lot and I've got to follow the rules when I go to South America,
yeah.
and I do. Every time I go through the process, and our country, I believe, if you could fact check this, but I believe we're like in the top 10 of all the countries in the world that have the largest number of people we process legally a year. So it's not like we're not letting people in legally. That's by the millions every year.
What I'm hearing from you is, yeah, you expect going out the door when you travel abroad, go to a different country, that you know the rules and you abide by the rules so you don't get in trouble.
Yeah,
And
100%.
seems like that would be a fair assumption for anybody traveling from any country to any other country if they're an adult,
Yeah,
manage their own life. So
yeah,
I'm all for this. The deportation of illegal immigrants, especially the violent ones, the ones that are detained for multiple offenses over and over, been here 16 times, 20 times, type of thing. Yeah,
yeah,
and then maintain the security. I think it's a good. I think it's a positive. I think you can hear a lot of rhetoric from people talking about how it's inhumane and this and that and the other thing, but the rule of law stands globally and has for a long time that if you're going to cross borders, you better know the rules. You better abide by the rules, man. You don't
yeah.
get a free pass just because it sucks to be detained and sent back to your country. Lots of things suck. Life is not fair. You play by the rules or you pay the consequences. So that's my opinion on it. I think it's a good thing. Thumbs up from this
Yep,
guy.
yeah, 100%. I mean, I I didn't read enough about the if you're born here that you get citizenship. It sounds like they're talking about revoking that for people that have already had it and been born here.
Yeah, that one's tough to do like a retroactive revocation of that.
Yeah.
That's like
Yeah, that's kind of messed up.
you're changing the rules, you're moving the goalposts. I mean, there's a great argument that the goalposts were in the wrong place. I don't know what the rule says either. I heard a mass media source on a news channel on the evening news say that the uh, that anchor baby, I guess, is a bad loaded term, but that is no longer a thing where if it's an illegal alien and having a baby here, that baby isn't automatically a citizen type of thing. There's going to be another process in place, which is where the goalposts have been shifted, but not retroactively. I hadn't heard that there's going to be a retroactive, you're no longer a citizen type of thing when they were established as a citizen at birth. That one
Yeah.
gets pretty gray and ugly. I think you can't move the goalposts. I think you can adjust from this point forward where the goalposts are, and that's responsible and the appropriate thing to do. But to go backwards is a rough level
Yeah.
of action, in
Yeah,
my
I think just yeah, like you said, it's a good analogy. Adjust the goalpost and then moving forward. That way it's not encouraging people to come do that
Yeah.
illegally.
And that tells everyone that we're looking at the long game. We're looking at the long term. We're not trying to do stuff for a election cycle. We are, our vision is for the long-term health of the republic and not for some votes next runaround,
100%.
So
Yeah.
I think the Air Force getting tagged to use their iron and capability to bolster this is a little, to me, it's like a little bit surprising. I would think that we would just steer the ship at Customs and Border Protection and use the assets. I'm not aware of the assets that they have available to them, but going, hey, we've tagged 5,400 people to get on Air Force airplanes to send them elsewhere is kind of like a little bit of an eyebrow raise for me.
Yeah. Seeing them
That
all
means like they're
travel.
going full afterburner at the beginning on this thing, saying, get them out of here. Let's set a precedent. And
It's definitely going to set a precedent.
yeah, like I might have, I mean, I've heard just little sniffs again on like a evening news snippet on my feed or whatever, where the sheriffs and the border protection lead, the high ranking officers down there in Arizona are seeing, and in Texas are seeing a massive just turning off of the flow. Like shit has stopped because the word has gotten out.
Yeah.
So that being the case, and going, almost 6,000 people right off the bat, that's going to be a major change. We'll see what a couple of months bring.
Yeah. One of the, I mean, forever since I've been, I grew up in California. Um, it's always been like, hey, go back to your own country and fix it. And it's like, that's easy to say. And when I was younger, I would say the same thing. Right. But a lot of these countries, there are people trying to fix it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot going on from our countryside and certain three-letter agencies that like keeping countries in the predicaments that they're in for decades and decades. So it's just a really sticky situation.
There is a lot to be fixed. There's a lot of aspects of it that are messed up. The meddling that our establishment has done across the board and globally
Yeah.
is 100% something that needs to be adjusted. And the blowback, the second, third order effects of things that we've done for decades, especially some of the Cold War era thought processes that were just so bad that have permeated generations and created terrible international policy that are counterproductive.
Yeah.
This is we're reaping the benefits of that now. We're seeing so many countries that are having a hard time, and no small part of that is due to a little bit of meddling by all.
Yeah. I
It is
mean,
the standard policy of each country to mess with the adjacent countries and any other country that may be of interest to
yeah.
shape the situation in their favor. That's natural. That's human nature. It's the way of politics and human beings. So you got to expect it, and you can't vilify yourself or feel like you're doing the wrong thing if you're executing that type of thing, because you've got to. If you
Yeah.
don't, you're dead.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I
but
mean, it's
setting up a long-term perspective on it and trying to be of the effort to improve humanity across the board is a great thing, but it doesn't really happen when you're talking about national actors. They're going to have the perspective where they're going to improve their own national state. And
yeah.
what you hope doesn't happen is that the powerful actors within a state aren't acting for a personal gain, but for overall state gain. And that's the problem I think that we can solve and make things a little better by having a state specific versus a oligarchy or smaller group of people specific motivation.
Yeah. I mean, I see it, being down in Colombia and Venezuela right next door, and they're voting one way and it's just not being done. And there's a lot of speculation that, we're a part of like making it that way to where they're voting democracy and democracy isn't happening.
Yeah.
And,
You spend a lot of time in Colombia. You got a place there.
yeah,
You
yeah, I go down there quite
frequent
often.
travel. Yeah.
Yep, yep. And so I've seen a lot in like Rio Negro, like not protests, but kind of rallies of Venezuelans there and getting to see that like up front and personal. And it's
So
a
the people, the populace are trying to get more democratic representation in their government and have the policies listen to the will of the people a little bit more. And it's not happening. You're still having strong men in office that they're kind of dictating what's going to happen. It's
they're
kind of
just
it's a democracy, but it's in name only, really. Is that the
um essentially that's pretty much kind of just what happened, the Democratic vote to vote in somebody else, and then the current guy's just like, yeah, no, not gonna do that. And then they bring in, the military and gangs and pretty much are just holding it down. And the Venezuelans are just like, I know we have a lot come here, and I know firsthand there's quite a lot that are dangerous.
yeah.
I've seen a lot here in San Antonio, and a lot of them are full face prison tats, a lot of them. And but then down
You
there, a
said
lot of it is,
coming through the US border or down
yeah,
there in Colombia?
up here.
Up here.
But when I'm down in Colombia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Venezuela were all essentially Colombia at one point, and then it broke into three. That's why their flags are similar,
Mm-hmm.
the same three colors, but different designs on each flag. But all the ones I've met in Colombia, they're just like good family people. I mean, that's my personal experience, and
Yeah.
I know a lot of Venezuelans down there. And going down there, my American friends have always been like, oh, be careful with the women. They just want to get, a visa and all that. And that is just 100% not true. I haven't met a single Colombian female that has any want to be in America. They like their country,
Yeah.
and especially over the years, seeing what does the last 4 years or so, seeing what the status is of like what's going on politically, and um, just not feeling like that's I don't like what we see here with transgenderism and all this stuff. Guys going into girls' bathroom, like I've never seen anything of that nature down there. Not
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Weird
So they don't
stuff.
want their kids to be raised here.
Right. Because they're seeing this craziness. Yeah. And
Uh,
Britain's in the same boat. Britain's worse off than we are.
yeah.
The UK's got some crazy policies in place, and that one's kind of wild. I don't want to really get into that one, but
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what you're saying is kind of your perspective is based on a lot of travel and getting out there internationally and not being fed the same
Yeah.
stuff that you get just by being in the United States. You get a sphere of influence just by being in the US. You go
Yeah.
outside of it, you're like, no, that doesn't really jive. That's not really. And I think of the quote from who's the guy on the public broadcasting system that goes Rick Steves Europe. You've seen that show,
Yeah.
and he's always like, travel is the antidote to bigotry, and I totally believe that to be true. He's illuminated so many cool things across the globe in his travels. And you mentioned something that resonated with that, where most people are just great family people. Most people, 90% or whatever, some huge percentage of everybody in every country around the world are just trying to live happily with their family in whatever system they were born into.
Yeah.
And what we hear about for the Russians is the people that make the policy, and we kind of equate that to the whole populace. And
Yeah.
that's not how it is. And the same thing within Venezuela, the same thing within
Yeah.
all the different countries.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I know plenty of Russians that are here, and yeah, I just you see what media does to people so quickly. Anything that's coming out of Russia, they're like Americans just like hate Russians, and it's like you're only seeing like the worst part that you're being shown. It's
yeah,
like same good people live in a harsh environment, they're a little stronger people. Like in general, the men that I meet they're not playing the games that we're playing here, but
yeah,
they're super good people and nice to me and treat me great. And I
yeah.
just you got this whole media thing and it just paints this picture that everybody but us is like evil, and then you just see people going off on each other in social media. I mean, you can't even, I was talking to you yesterday. It's like you post a video of like the Su-57 and it takes no time whatsoever that it's just Raptor versus Sioux and people just foul to each other. And it's like, can't we just agree that even though it's a massive bird, it is beautiful and it can do some pretty amazing things for how big it is?
Yeah.
And like that's it. It's awesome. It's
I
aviation.
can't tell that the new Russian fighters, the new Chinese fighters that have been going out and have been released publicly now, I can't tell uh, what I'm seeing if what I'm seeing is AI generated or real footage anymore. I'm like
Yeah.
probably 90% of the videos that I've seen of these things doing aerobatics are AI.
Oh, like the flanker, or I mean the felon.
Like, yeah, I because something about how the the video the camera tracks the thing, it's like super perfect within a pixel, pristine tracking, and I'm like, there's
Yeah.
something that's probably not real, you know.
Yeah. I
It's like
mean,
a
I could agree that quite a lot is, but having like, going in like the Air Force circuit, like being a part of the Det One and going to air shows for them in 2023, I got to meet a lot of like awesome photographers, Dustin Farrell for one. And when you see they tour around with the Raptor demo team,
I'm sure they've got great tracking software and
and
stuff that makes it look like that.
it is just so crazy that how you got lenses bigger than like I can't even like illustrate with my hands.
Yeah,
It's like how do you guys track just manually? And they do, but I think the felon can do. I've never really thought about the felon being AI personally
yeah. No, I think
because
this
like the
stuff
flankers can
exists,
do that.
100% exists, but I mean, the stuff that we get to see, there's
Yeah,
probably a good percentage of it that has been run through a computer.
yeah,
I mean, I don't
yeah.
know. I
We're
really
getting we're
haven't.
getting into the weeds of AI very
Yeah,
quickly.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's going to be really tough. I got aunts and uncles that send me stuff like, "Oh, look at this! Can you believe this?" And I'm like, "That's a video game." And they're like, "Oh, really?" That
yeah.
most people don't know.
Yeah, and
They
they
assume it's
love to
real.
say like, "Oh, I'm surprised everybody doesn't realize this is just DCS." Like I was like, "Yeah, we know it's a game, but yeah, some people don't."
Yeah, a lot of people don't. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and
if you're
it's
not in the circle of aviation,
yeah, you don't
that
know,
you wouldn't have a clue.
and it's hard to like go back and think like, "Oh yeah, not everyone knows this much about aviation," and yeah, it happens all the time, and it's better like being able to educate them.
Let's see here. Did you have a couple topics? I want to look at one or two more topics on the weekly rundown here.
Yeah,
Uh,
I just was checking out the latest video posted by at Boom Supersonic. Have
oh,
you
that X plane
the
with the
XB
low
one?
impact supersonic or the sonic boom that's supposed to be quieter, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to by the time it's coming out the rear of the jet, it's supposed to have been able to, I guess, just baffled off the damage that it could do below it. So the intention, it's not, that's just the test version of the shape, but it will turn into a massive airliner.
Yeah, if this translates, you can get an airliner traveling supersonic over the continental United States without damaging impact for sonic booms across the flight path.
Yeah,
That would be awesome. Efficiency for fuel,
yeah,
time. Yeah, that would be a game changer for air travel.
yeah. Overseas,
Yeah,
transcontinental, or just LA to
New York.
New York.
Yeah,
Like
hour and a half flight to LA to New York. That'd be pretty sweet.
everyone getting to experience supersonic flight.
Yeah,
That's pretty awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. That video was super tight.
crispy.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was cool. You could
I
zoom
can't.
in and see a whole bunch of detail on the instrument panel, and
Yeah, and none of them are flashing. You know.
yeah, there was a little bit of a wave on the lower center console there. So
Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, I couldn't tell if that was all Garmin, but I mean, it looked like it. I
like
mean,
it could have
it
been
was
off the
awesome.
shelf stuff into that test plane.
I no, but it looked like some of it,
Yeah.
but yeah. But that was their next flight is their fifth flight, and that's when they were going to plan to go Mach 1.
Yeah, they were doing the 0.9, 0.95 testing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and up to that video, they've been using the T-38 as like the trail.
the chase
And
plane.
yeah, and they just, I think that was it the Mirage? I think it was a Mirage that
Uh,
they started using. I don't, they didn't really say why in the short video, but yeah, it's a great video. I've been following it for at least a year.
well, the T-38 is only going to go to like Mach 1.1, and that's going to be maxed out, and that's going to be in
And
a
that takes some work.
descent, and it's going to be with AB, and you're not going to have legs in the 38 to do it. You got to have something that's got some more oomph. So
Yeah.
I'm sure that's why once they
Yeah.
start mock testing, you're going to need a bigger airplane.
Yeah. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to go Mach 1 .05, I believe is what we
Yeah,
got to, but it took some work.
yeah.
Wasn't it was high, obviously.
And you're in a PMP T-38, just that's what we have. And so the intakes, you look at the older A models,
Yeah.
the intake is optimized for supersonic flight. The intake we have now is optimized for takeoff efficiency. So you get better thrust at 0 knots up through your 150 knots, not up at Mach 1. So that adds a lot of drag at the high Mach number, which keeps us even tougher with the C
Yeah.
model to get going fast.
Yeah, the intakes on the A model look a little more aggressive too.
Yeah, they're angled in
Yeah,
and it's straight up and
yeah.
down on the C model.
Yeah, it was it seemed like we needed to be in a slight bank to get it to happen when we did it.
A little bit nose down in a descent. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
But yeah, I mean, having it happen and you just like nothing happens.
yeah. It's just a needle going. Oh, it's
Yep.
0.99, 1.0, and a little.
Yeah.
That's it. You
It's
see a little
definitely
wobble
not
on the needle.
it's definitely not Top Gun Maverick. Everything getting shakier. It's definitely smooth.
Yeah,
No sound whatsoever.
I love telling people that. Yeah, I try to tell the guy in the front cockpit that we went supersonic, and he didn't hear me till we slowed back down again. People are like, really? Does that happen?
Yeah, like it's about to come apart. We're just like riding the ejection seat
We had
in.
to slow down so the sound could catch back up to the guy in the.
Yeah. Gotta
People
slow
fall for
back
that
down to
stuff.
sound.
That's what I mean, man. I mean, everybody's like, look at this stuff. I mean, that's a video game.
Yeah.
People just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny too, like in DCS, sometimes it's like it's a video game that's having you like G out, like, and like in real life you could handle that for
Yeah.
sure. And like, how's this video game like making me be like, not be able to do this?
Oh, here's one. Here's one. Let's see where we at. What's our time at? We're sitting at come on. Where's my number?
I think we started recording somewhere around like 140 maybe or 145.
All right, here we go. The lawmakers moved to limit foreign real estate buys near military bases.
That needed to go down.
Yeah, you think that's a good thing?
Yeah, like limiting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't be happening at all.
Okay.
I mean, we
Yeah.
have so much farmland and farms that China has purchased and owns, and freeways in California. There's so many freeways that are helpful in California, but they're like built by China, and you're paying toll road fees. You know, they're just snapping pictures of your license plate, and you go in the app and pay it. You tell them the time from time that you were on that road, and if you don't remember, you just pay like for a whole day. It's and then you have our produce, like farming land being bought by China. It's like, what are we doing here? Like
Yeah,
that doesn't
we're
make any
offering
sense.
them free intelligence on the movement of our people. We're offering them the the production capability for our food, and plenty of surveillance on our military bases too. Just yeah, it's pretty silly. I wonder. I wonder if China has American purchased land in the vicinity of their bases. Do we have land in their country that we own that we can put whatever we want? I wonder if
Like
we've got an equivalent.
embassies.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a U.S. owned soil with U.S. stuff in China next to their big bases. I wonder. Probably not. Probably
Probably not. They don't, they're not, they're in the business of multi-generational like infiltration and just watching what we're
not. The long
doing.
game.
And that's something that the average American just is not ever going to have in their head up to the like, I mean, there's some maybe, but as a whole, I feel like China and Russia, they'll put children in and they'll grow up and get a certain status in America. They'll have kids, and the long game is literally like 100 years until they're like, yeah, and they're not playing. And there was a video, I think from the late 80s, early 90s when YouTube first came out. It's on there, and it's voice altered, face covered, and
Yeah.
it's a interview of a Russian spy. And this is back late 80s, early 90s, and he says, if we stopped everything we're doing right here, right now, it would take America 3 to 4 generations to recover. And it's like, coming over, how did all this I don't know, we don't want to get in the weeds on the subject of what's been going on,
Yeah.
but they're not letting that happen in their countries,
Yeah.
and their kids are breaking down assault rifles in like seconds and rebuilding them in
Yeah.
seconds in a classroom. So
Yeah. I think there's a at least perceived difference in how our leadership with how we're set up. Our republic is set up to have elections and a lot of throughput and turnover. So the short game is primary, and especially in what we get fed day to day.
yeah,
There, I hope, are folks who are um, in there in longer term tenured positions that have the long game in mind, especially in our intelligence services and communities that aren't like a elected
yeah,
position that is looking 2 to 4 years down the road
yeah,
that can counter and at least have an equivalent to Russia, the 1989 CIA dude with his face blacked out saying, "We're so embedded with the long game that you guys have no idea." I think we probably have some equivalent going
yeah,
on that
yeah,
we don't ever get to hear about because everybody's so busy bickering about the short game. You know?
yeah. It's wild. I
I mean,
mean,
that's what it is. There's a lot of churn. There's a lot of pissing and moaning and bickering and bitching about the short game that really doesn't matter. If you like separate yourself from 2 year politics,
yeah,
the impact to your life generally is going to be nil whatsoever.
yeah.
You know?
It's amazing what happens when you just turn it off.
Yeah.
Like I remember I actually back in like 2013, I was at a peak of listening to like Alex Jones like the whole show every day.
Were you
And
getting like physically angry and stuff?
oh
Like,
my God, yes.
yeah,
I was living in Vegas. And I was just, like everything was messed up in the world.
Yeah,
And I was like, dude, I am angry everywhere I go, and everything's a conspiracy. And I just one day I just was like, I'm turn this off. And then within a week, I'm like, whoa, the world's actually totally fine and my life is good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, if you stop letting people put things into your head, especially like the divisive stuff between different, groups of people and races, yeah, nobody's really pissed off at each other if you just turn everything off.
that's
Just
right.
start engaging with people,
Yeah.
saying hi, like
And there's so much to be
everything's
said
fine.
about allowing yourself the space to just manage your own emotions. If you can just control what you can control, focus on
Yeah,
what you can control, and that's mostly what you think and how you act, and not let what someone else is feeding you dictate your emotions and your actions. That would be a reaction. Just maintain your own space.
yeah. Just
Control
be.
what you can control, and don't let the outside of your control things dictate your emotions. Let that
Yeah,
just slide. Observe, understand, and then operate your own fucking life.
yeah. Just let it pass on, process it, and let it go.
Yeah. What else do we got here? Off the weekly newsletter, the Philippines is buying a bunch of FA-50 fighters.
Yeah.
Yep, from South Korea, getting 12 more and a new buy. Um, I guess China doesn't like that.
Valid. It makes
Well,
sense.
yep. Hey, wouldn't it have been cool if the Air Force, the United States Air Force, bought the T-50 about what 20 years ago when it was ready to go instead of this T-7 debacle? I wonder what things would have been like if we'd have gone in on that one right back then. We might have a whole different picture of pilot training right now.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy how long the T-38 has been in service.
Yeah, dude, I am almost 47 years old. I went through undergraduate pilot training in 2003, and when I was going through pilot training, they're like, "Well, we should have a
Oh,
T-38 trainer replacement in 5 years."
oh no.
Fielded was what they said when I was going through undergraduate pilot training. The T-38 was old then, and I'm retired. So they really would have been well within their rights as an Air Force to buy the T-50 in 2000. I think it was 2007, 2006, 7, 8 time frame when that thing was kind of being considered, and would have been good.
Yeah,
It might have been great. I don't know.
I think it could have been great.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that's like a lot of people say that with that airframe.
yeah,
What are we doing? Now we're not going to get it for so much longer.
yeah,
We talked about it on the phone last night, but just for like the listeners, the T7 has just been pushed back another couple years.
yeah.
Um, but the trade-off was that Randolph gets some working ones, so people
Yeah,
can
so I
start.
think the understanding that I have of it was there was a media post, there was a news article that was released that said the T7 has been delayed yet another year for the production model. Talking to some folks here that are in the know on Friday, it's a little bit misleading on the headline, as you would expect.
Yep.
The real data is slightly different than the headline read, where the change is that we are increasing the uh, the timeliness. So sooner, we're getting 4 test airplanes sooner. So
Yeah.
that's bolstered the test influx of
Yeah.
iron and reduced the operational iron, or set that operational delivery back by 1 year for the first operational delivery.
Yeah.
But it increases. They're finding that they need more iron for testing to get our
Yeah.
envelopes established and our maintenance and training products developed. They've got to get more testing done to be able to produce that stuff. So that's been the effort of the Air Force, is to bolster and quicken the pace of the testing so that we can really get after it.
Yeah.
Back in the day when it was World War II, when we're getting a new design every month, we're getting new airplanes produced from design to production in 6 to 9 months at a time, or less than a year to get this done. Those days are over, and you would be crushed as a company, and you would never recover if you went from proposal to design to production. And after the production, you found that, had you tested, you wouldn't have wings falling off or something like that. You just, in this day and age, you can't do that. That's not an excuse for how poorly our acquisition projects are operating.
It's
But
so
we do
bad.
have many more constraints, not even to mention the political and other money restrictions that are happening because of laws, rules, regulations, and all that stuff.
Yeah, we need to get into making things happen, and it's not in a contractor's best interest to do things fast.
Right.
Even at the small level of how things are done, let's say here with our VR flight simulator contractors,
Yep.
just in my experience, some of the companies that have tried to win contracts to do my job um, had a year to produce a proof of concept and to do exactly what I'm already doing by myself. And they ended up just, you know, getting a hold of my videos and presenting it as their own, and were caught. And so
Yeah.
it's just like it just seems like it's not really they're not about the mission. They're like, how do we maintain just getting paid year after year and drag our feet through the whole process?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's the reality, man. And being in high school and starting out at the Air Force Academy, I was super idealistic, naive idealist. Thought that everybody was out for the long game for America, and it's just, that's not the case. You got to have rules in place. You got to have
Yeah.
a perspective of the people that manage this stuff at the Air Force level, that are able to cut through the people that are out for the buck and not for the long term health of the United States or the combat power of the U.S.
Yeah.
So that's a tough thing to do. It's a real tough thing to do, but it's necessary. And that seems to be in tension with the Doge. Like, we're trying to remove regulation and get rid of red tape, but you got to have a little bit of that so people aren't taking advantage of you and screwing you over. So
Yeah.
you got to do this smartly. I think there is a bunch of bloat as far as regulations go, and things that hamstring us and make it
Yeah.
very inefficient and create fraud, waste, and abuse of our finances.
Yeah. I mean,
It's a tough balance. You need smart
yeah.
people working very hard and making really bold action to get anything better out of our system than we've got right now.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot. And I think people have an idea about some of it, but like there's just things that are just out of control that you see every day, and you're just like,
Yeah.
really?
And
Really?
so,
Do we really need to replace monitors? Really? 'Cause they're
do
out
we
of
need
warranty?
computers again?
It's like, just because it's out of warranty, like, come on. We're gonna let them sit in a closet for 10 years till someone finally gets rid of them.
The amount of equipment that I've seen just get wasted in the
Yeah,
in this system.
it's
It's,
horrible. It's like there's so many people, like a whole school could have all new these things for free, Like we could just give it to them, but we
yeah.
can't. Yeah, it's interesting seeing like the pluses and minuses of GSs, um, and then the pluses and minuses of contracting. If you get I mean, like that's why I made Flux Mechanics able to do contracting, because there's so much I can do by myself, and I'm not even trying to make a bunch of money. Like I want to undercut these big blow companies that are just getting nothing done. That's the purpose of why I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm all about getting stuff done and making everything better as well. That's like my other podcast, Get Better Every Day with Snapper. That's the whole goal, is to make an individual better, make whatever team you're on better. Every
Yeah.
single day, you find a way to improve it.
Yeah.
And you don't find that. I mean, I'm a GS. pilot
Yeah.
for the Air Force, and I'm doing stuff that is completely separate than my description, my position description, because I think that it needs to happen. It's
Yeah.
connected to being an instructor. I'm making the whole enterprise of instructing a better thing by doing all this stuff. But if
Yeah.
I were what you're talking about, the typical I'm here for the money government service employee, it would be like, oh, sorry, can't do that. Not in my position description. Got to go. See ya.
Yeah, there's so much that I've done that like if I wasn't doing it outside of my lane, I would be sitting there for like a year and a half, like just and from what I hear from officers, it's one of the things they don't like about GSs is just they could just be sitting there just 10 years from retire and just waiting to retire. If someone doesn't give them something to do, they don't. I
Yeah.
just, how can you live your life just doing nothing and sitting in an office under fluorescent?
I don't
I'm
know.
not the
I got to
way.
move. I got to be doing stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
that's just who I am. And
Yeah.
maybe it's rare, maybe it's not. I don't know. But I
I'm
think you
like,
and I are
this is
both the same way.
my one shot. This is my human experience.
Yeah,
Like,
man.
I'm
This is
not
the one life
spending
I
it.
got. You got to move it.
Yeah. I gotta keep moving. And yeah, so I mean, to even touch on that, I'm trying to wrap up a couple projects so, I can feel like I'm 100% good with what I've done here and then move on.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
Maybe when the T7 gets closer, I come back and help make training with that. I mean, that's been talked about, but at most right now, I could just go out to Edwards and, to not interfere with like training, but just be there when a new test class comes through and get some exterior inspections over the rails, startups, because I know for a fact what Boeing has ready to deliver, and it's PDFs. That's about it. So that's not good. I mean,
Yeah.
I've flown in. Did you at the last te Great Texas Air Show? Or wait, I think you were in Vegas at the time, maybe. But they brought their Boeing sim, the two-seater T7. Were you here for that?
Yeah. I did see that.
Yeah,
No, maybe I saw that. I did sit in the T7 sim.
yeah.
I don't remember where I was. It may have been when I was at Blue Air training at the AFA conference. It may have been before I retired in 2020 at the AFA conference. I'm not sure.
Was it the mobile one that has
Yeah.
like the air-conditioned room with the two seats?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. What'd you think of it?
It was very incomplete, but it looked like it was going to be super slick.
Yeah, the one
But
that they had at the not this one, but like 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, Great Texas Air Show, they had it there, and they let the cheetahs and the DBEs get like slotted out time, and I got to get in it and fly it, and it's pretty awesome.
yeah, I think the visibility, the ease of landing and flying it, uh, the the human factors, the human machine interface is going to be a big step up. The
Yeah,
T-38 is a bear. It's rough. You got real thin margins to land it. Super dangerous. Killed a lot of people. I think the T-7 is going to be way safer there. There's
yeah,
just, I mean, that is the big, bright, shining number one thing that I look forward to. If I'm going to still be flying another 3 or 4 years, if one shows up here, maybe I'll get to fly one. I don't know, but the ease of landing and the amount of time we can take back from the training process where we spend so much time trying to get a person proficient in landing and not killing people in a T-38 specifically, we can give that time back to teaching tactics and other things or introduction to the next step of how it is going to be to be a good fighter pilot or a good bomber pilot. Where
yeah,
right now we're just a lot of time is spent keeping them from crashing a T-38. So
yeah. And the feedback I hear from other, retired Air Force, Navy guys that have flown T-38s for the Guard, they're just like, yeah, it's a jet. It's not a T6, but it's definitely not like a real fighter jet. And so it's just like really, I mean, introduction to what a jet is and moving fast.
yeah,
It's nothing like a Viper.
yeah. Well, I went from 38 to A10. A10 was super easy, like super forgiving. It's like a very easy old square body Chevy pickup truck to drive. It's a little bit loose, you can make a mistake and you're not going so fast, so you can recover, no big deal. And then you get coming from the 38, which is like the very first generation Viper. Like you can go kill yourself, turn that thing around in like no time. It's just
Yeah.
way too powerful or too
Yeah.
sketchy for an unskilled
Yeah.
driver to manage. Yeah, that's the analogy I give, is like the T38 being that first generation Viper, and
Yeah.
the V10 super overpowered rear wheel drive car, and then
Yeah.
the A10's like the old square body Chevy. It's just the
Do you think like, because I've heard, talking to, a couple of the other hog drivers, and they're just like, that's highly task saturated. And there's different systems from different decades in the hog. So would you say like it being a lot slower, like would help with that?
Oh, I think when I'm giving that analogy, I'm just talking about the aerodynamic
Yeah.
properties and how the stick and throttle flying is with the 38 versus the A10. When you start talking about workload and the amount of data flow through,
Yeah.
T38 is a joke. It's like
Yeah.
nothing's
Yeah.
happening. All you're doing is flying it. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The A10, I flew combat missions in the A10 from 2004 through 2014, 10-year span, A
Yeah.
model through C plus model. So the amount of data coming through, especially in 2014, is immense. You've got dozens of systems that are the offensive, defensive, sensor, communication, all of that stuff is on top of what's already happened in the T38 over there. Yeah, it's moving a little bit slower. It doesn't have a great autopilot. It's got a very rudimentary autopilot that
Yeah.
can get you in trouble. But yeah, the workload is immense, and so your challenge in flying a T38 well is very thin margins in pitch and power and that type of thing. The hands. The T30, the A10 is forgiving with the hands, but you've got to have brain work and steps and checklists and training and dedication to knowing your craft to be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
manage those systems and that information flow so you don't get bogged down and confused.
Yeah, and not to mention you're supporting troops and
And the
the
cost of failure
battles.
is death. Yeah.
Yeah, the battle space is changing, winds changing, people are popping smoke, letting you know where they are, and yeah, if you could lose, it's a lot. I imagine it's a ton
Yeah.
going on, being that close to the ground and making sure you're not shooting on one side of smoke or the other,
That's
and
exactly like a story I gave in the
for
what was
court.
the podcast, the Combat Story podcast with Ryan Fugit. Maybe we'll put a link in the description here. But yeah, I talk about one of my troops in contact stories where my wingman had a malfunction, had to go away, and I'm doing exactly what you're talking about as Singleton out in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. So yeah, we'll hook that up for the viewers if you're still watching and want to check it out. There you go.
Yeah.
Hey, let's wrap it up, dude. Where I think we're pushing an hour. And
Okay.
anything else you wanted to bring up and talk to that you had a note on or anything?
No, that's cool. Yeah. We'll
All
save it for
right.
the next one. Next
Yeah,
Sunday.
I'm gonna do a recap or not a recap, but review the thing that I liked that we talked about the most. And I think it was when you brought up how people should be positive, and it was something about humanity. It was what was it that you said? There
Was
was
it
a
right before I started talking about Alex Jones that, people all over the world and what we're being projected through like media is like it's not how they are. And they're
yeah,
all people are happy and just living like a family in my travels. And all you got to do is just go outside, turn off the noise, and just, kind of what you're saying, just let it pass your space. And like people in general are all happy, and you just got to, say hi,
good stuff, man.
start
Yep.
talking to them. Yeah.
Across the globe, everybody's thinking the same thing, wanting to live a good life.
Yep. And all they're seeing is this media that's saying 100% different, and it's pitting us against each other. And that's just, you got to go out there, you got to travel,
Yep.
you got to see what the world's really like, the people, because when when I started going to Colombia, people were like, do not go down there by yourself. It's dangerous. And I was like, all right, well, I'm doing it. And the first thing I did was go out by myself without knowing any Spanish at the time. It only took me like 30 minutes before I already had a group of Colombians just hanging out with them. And now they're some of the best friends I have in the world. And all I can say is like, it is not narcos down there. Not at all,
Yep.
anywhere you go in the world. I mean, I used to live in downtown LA, 7th and Broadway, to like 2 blocks from Skid Row. And I've walked through that area and said, what's up to people, and never at 3 a.m. and never felt any danger whatsoever. I think the way you present yourself to the world makes a big difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. All right. Well, we're going to sign out. We'll
All right.
see everybody next time. Good chatting with you, brother.
Yeah, you too.